Welcome. My name is Sister Who. I made a comment to a friend a while back that it seemed to me that all paradoxes are true. I've been kind of holding that in my mind to see whether it actually stands up. But it seems the more paradoxes I encounter, the more I do find that all paradoxes are true. That in ways that I don't understand, seemingly incongruous things exist side by side. In reflecting on life and experience, things I've been through, things I expect to be part of in the future, it seems to be this range of things that I would, if I were designing a life, I never would have thought to combine. Winding up here as a gay nun of all things, and yet having a life partner, and having different vows that have more to do with serving whatever good I can, a commitment to love in all its forms, a commitment to inclusivity. It kind of becomes an ongoing question. And though actually, in looking back at life, I find my questions are much more helpful to me than any answers would be. The answer is kind of like a period on a sentence. You say why, and you get an answer, and it's like, oh, okay, end of subject. Whereas if you have a question that doesn't have one single easy-to-package answer, it keeps you going, it keeps you growing, it keeps you learning and experiencing more and more and more as time goes on. And somehow, in the same way that with the human race, we're all in this together. People with disabilities, people of different ethnic backgrounds, people of different religions. In the same way, within me, there's a sense of all these different things somehow just all being part of the territory. And the ways that I grow and begin to understand how to integrate and how to interface, how to get these things to interact and harmonize, that's the unfolding of life. Like the saying goes, life is what happens while you're making other plans. I think John Lennon said that, but I imagine somebody said it before him as well. There is an unpredictability and an unfolding quality to life, as well as a way that it's almost cyclical, or more like a spiral. When they say history repeats itself, it's never exact, but it's kind of like you're passing over the same territory again, always getting a little higher. Winding through the different things, kind of like a maze, but kind of like there's some higher order to things that has never been completely defined or packaged. I'd like to share a song with you I wrote about 4 years ago. Kind of put some of these things together. Teddy bears and building blocks, matchbox cars and fossil rocks, and dreams of what my life would be in time. Learning how to read and write, to ride my bike and fly a kite, and how much can be done with just a dime. Being told the world is black and white, and everything is either wrong or right. But what does all this mean? It's all a part of who I am, the paths I've walked, the place I stand, the feelings that stir within my heart. I won't consent to live a lie I won't just go away and die. I'll smile and laugh and then reply. I am who I am. Never cry and be a man. Make all the money that you can, and never question why. Choose your friends most carefully and make decisions prayerfully, and never tell a lie. So they say, but do not do. Who then shall I listen to? And what does all this mean? It's all a part of who I am, the paths I walk, the place I stand, the feelings that stir within my heart. I won't consent to live a lie. I won't just go away and die. I'll smile and laugh and then reply. I am who I am. I've felt the ocean at my feet and climbed the mountain's rocky peak and taken time to gaze upon the stars. I've journeyed far across the sea and held on to my dreams for me and written songs to play on my guitar. Still I'm learning more, it seems, of how many ways there are to be. But what does all this mean? It's all a part of who I am, the paths I've walked, the place I stand, the feelings that stir within my heart. I won't consent to live a lie. I won't just go away and die. I'll smile and laugh and then reply. I am who I am. I am who I am. I am who I am. Sometimes I ask the question, as I look at the world, I look at what happens, the good things and the bad things, the way I try to decide whether a thing is good or bad. And I look up and I say, who are you, God? But then I have to ask, in light of whatever answer I get, who am I? And it's a question that I never finish answering. And in that sense, it becomes an inspiring and motivating question. Not a disappointing or discouraging sort of thing, but something by which new things can be created, new ways of looking at things, new perspectives. It's like looking at one side of an object for a while until I think I understand it, and then moving all the way around to the other side of the room and seeing what the other side of the object looks like. One of the ways this symbolism is brought forth is in the face of Sister Who. If we look from one side, there's a great amount of purple on the nose and the eye is in white. If we look from the other side, the eye is in purple and the nose is white. Sometimes there's more than one way of looking at things, but sometimes it's a question of where we're standing and what's around us. The human eye adjusts to levels of light as well. Sometimes when I go outside at night, I have to wait till my eyes adjust to where I can see more things, especially if I've come from an especially bright room. The eye is adjusting to the environment. And so there is more than one way of looking at things, even when you're using the same eye. But like I said earlier, there's also the more than way of looking at things depending on which side of the object you're standing on. One of the books I read in high school was All Quiet on the Western Front, and I found it a very interesting book because I didn't see anything in it that attempted to justify in any way anything that Adolf Hitler or the Nazis did during World War II. Rather, it was the other perspective, looking at the conflict from the other side, understanding on a real down-to-earth human level what was at stake, a way of life, a way of being, a way of interacting, family members and friends, the course of one's own life. And it showed how there wasn't as clear a definition of right and wrong as what we've sometimes been led to believe. There's a perspective, there are choices, and there are pros and cons to all the different choices. Every choice has consequences, but no choice is inherently bad. And every choice, however good or bad, has certain costs. There's an enormous amount we learned by the concentration camps and the atrocities of World War II. What we learned came at a very high cost in terms of the human lives that were terminated in those situations. How does any person have any way of legitimately saying, of legitimately answering the question, was it worth it? I don't think a person with any compassion would want to answer such a question. Was it worth it? But it stands as an example that even in the darkest times, there is a point of light. Even in the worst situations, there's something to learn. But I think the reverse is also true, that even in that which seems to be the best of times, there are points of darkness to seek out, to explore, to understand, to relate to. There are things that a utopian society allows us to miss. It's a legitimate question whether the things we have learned from evaluating what happened in Germany to allow for Nazism in the concentration camps, it's a legitimate question whether we would have learned any of that if that situation had never come up. In the same way that without the presence of horrid diseases in human history, absolutely terrible things, whether medical science would have ever advanced at all. It's a paradox that's true. it's not that one justifies the other or condemns the other. Rather, it's the two things that exist simultaneously in this. And to the degree that we change perspective, the two things cycle. They change places. What is a good thing one moment is a bad thing from another perspective, and then a good thing from another perspective, and a bad thing from another perspective. And it reminds us that where we live is a very gray area. That if we polarize things, that if we push them into yes and no and black and white, and set categories of it has to be one way or it has to be the other, and one side is the hero and the other side is the enemy, to the extent that we force that, it costs us. We lose the contribution of that which we think is our enemy, and we choose blindness to the weaknesses of our heroes. And then again, as has been said, we have found the enemy, and the enemy is us. We try to identify what evil is and what the enemy is and the source of bad things, and we discover, if we're willing to look, that the face in the mirror belongs to us. And then we're faced with somehow adjusting, integrating, coping with the reality of this paradox, that within each of us is a Dr. Jekyll and a Mr. Hyde, that within each of us is an Adolf Hitler and a Mother Teresa. That each moment of each day, each choice affirms which direction we're moving, and how clearly we understand who and what we are and what it is that we're moving towards and away from. And how often it is that something hurts and we try to move away from it, only to find that we left before we healed. A person in need, a person, for example, who has a malignant tumor that needs to be removed from their body, if they leave the hospital before that tumor is removed, they take it with them. A surgical operation to remove a malignant tumor requires a surgical knife. And a knife in and of itself may be the surgeon's scalpel or the murderer's attack weapon. The difference between the two is the wisdom and the love and the compassion with which the utensil is handled. I find one such tool to be forgiveness. But I find that in the hands of some religious institutions, it is a murderer's knife. And in the hands of other divinely guided individuals, it is a surgeon's scalpel. To say, you must forgive this person, you must let go, you must put it in the past, period, to me is a murderer's knife, because it does not show compassion for the person who has been a victim. There is a sense in which the negative cycle needs to be broken. Forgiveness needs to happen. But like a malignant tumor, it needs to be handled wisely. You can't forgive someone until you have done your grieving, until you have exposed the tumor to the light, until it has been wisely and skillfully removed, until there has been healing in that place. It is not repression, it is not let's not talk about it. Let's just put it in the past. Let's forget about it. Let's pretend it never happened. Well, it did happen. Part of forgiveness is reconciling yourself to the reality of the situation. The damage was done. That healing is needed. An additional part of the situation, part of the healing though, as in the story of All Quiet on the Western Front, is understanding that the other person, at their deepest level, didn't do it just to get at you. Rather, it's an expression of where they're at. Jesus said, out of the heart the mouth speaks. A person who has woundedness in their heart is naturally going to express a lot of that woundedness. I need to understand that the other person needs healing, and that's why they responded with woundedness. I need to understand that I was standing in front of the gun when it went off, and that I really was wounded, and I need to do my own healing, but I need to understand I was wounded by a wounded person. I wasn't wounded by someone who was just out to get me. There was something that preceded the action. If I look at them and all I see is a person who hurt me, I will never understand them. And I will never be able to totally forgive them. I will never be able to embrace my own healing. And I will never be able to pray for their healing. A person who has been wounded needs to be healed. If at all possible, we need to try to make sure no one is standing in front of the gun of that wounded person. We need to prevent them from hurting other people. But we need to prevent them in a compassionate manner. Not saying, you're the enemy, that's it. But say, to understand that they're a wounded person who needs to be healed. They're a wounded person who needs to be freed from the woundedness in their own heart so that they don't go on wounding other people. It's becoming this tangled sort of cycle as I'm trying to describe it here. Another way I put it to someone in the past, trying to be clear on this point, is that people I meet in the store who don't know me don't do things to irritate me. They do things because of whatever they're feeling at the time. If I want the world to be a better place to live in, if I want it to be a more beautiful place, I need to do what I can to break the negative cycles. There will be times when I'm discouraged and I'm disappointed and I'm dealing with my own woundedness. And perhaps I'll need to retreat to a quiet place and do my own healing and build up my own strength again. When I'm done with my personal retreat, though, I need to step back out there and I need to put a positive seed into a negative situation. I need to look at the person who has just snapped at me because, oh, maybe it's a cashier in a department store who is just having a hard day and the last customer they dealt with was really rude. I need to be the one to smile at them and say, I hope your day goes better from this point on. I hope that no matter how tiring this gets, you are able to find a way that you can celebrate whatever is going on in your life, a way that you can be empowered to make a positive choice, a way that your luck changes, that things start to go right for you. Stopping to take the time to hold the door for someone. Being there to listen and not offer advice when all someone wants is a listening ear. And maybe it costs me a little bit to do that, but maybe I think making the world a better place is worth the cost. And because of that, when I am able to, I need to make the extra effort. I need to find a way to deal with my own hurts, but I need to find a different way than just passing the hurt along to someone else. Each of us have dreams and wishes for how the world could be. And perhaps this is not how you expected a person to look, who might at some point bring you just one or two little insights for how things could work, for how today at least could be different. Maybe we can't change the future, but maybe we can change today a little bit. Maybe we can make a point to include the person who too often is excluded. Maybe instead of rushing in with our idea of how it should be, we can stop ourselves just long enough to ask, well, before I tell you my idea, what do you think? Because after all, we're in this together, and I want this to work for both of us. And it takes an extra effort. But what do you lay the foundation for? It's a more positive future for everyone. And who knows, but the person you help today might be the one you didn't know was going to be there to help you tomorrow. It's an up and down, paradoxical sort of process. Somehow, as it unfolds, there are so many days when my one prayer is that I hope I do something right today. Because life is lived in a gray area, and I could do the thing that's safe, but I'm Sister Who does she think she is? So I suppose that means that I'll be among those taking the risk. Trying a little bit of audacity, but trying to combine it with a little bit of humility. So that bit by bit, maybe I can continue to find out by looking at my own actions in life who it is that I think I am. Thank you for joining us.